Tell me if you have heard this one before. New AAA release comes out. The media is buzzing. It's the best thing ever. It's the second coming. And we like the second coming here, right? Well, obviously we do. Who doesn't, okay? And then the gamers get their hands on it and it's bland, boring, predictable, frustrating, bad design, bad everything, and best of all, it calls you a bad person for daring to dislike the things that the creators liked or supporting the wrong thing. And then, inevitably, a week, sometimes maybe a month, or sometimes maybe even a couple of days just pass, and the game is dead. And lo and behold, the creators of the game crash out because it's somehow our fault that they made a bad product. Oh, the gamers didn't buy our sloppy shit. How dare they? How dare they not buy it? We did everything they didn't ask for, and we did none of the things that they asked for. And they just didn't support us. It's their fault that our product that is literally slop failed. And the media is like, oh, gamers need to step up. They need to support the industry. What's gonna happen if modern slop doesn't get pushed out? Yeah, I bet you have heard this stupid story. And then the crash out happens, and I make a video about it because it's funny and get bread. It is what it is. It's a never-ending cycle, it seems like, and it never stops.
High-guard developers, as well as some in games media, have taken to crashing out, blaming the players for the game's failure instead of just confronting reality. I am so sick and tired of players being blamed for failed games. This weird expectation that the customer needs to be there to catch these developers when they fall, that they need to donate their empathy to those who do not understand the customer's needs, do not
I thought iDubbbz has all the empathy needed for these things.
Not seem to care, and then want to stand around and act surprised when everybody's upset. This is not a charity. You are asking for people's time, for their money, and for their patience.
Listen, sometimes this may actually even work. Rare, but it's possible. But listen, if you take all of your free time calling me a bad person, because I don't think like you, because I don't act like you, because I dare to do things differently, I'm definitely not supporting you. Why would I support anyone who attacks me? Why would I go against my own interests? This is the best part. These people don't understand how we choose to not go against our own interests. Well, will never go against their own interests, by the way, but we are expected to do so. We are expected to take one for the team.
If you guys just wanted their well wishes, you wouldn't be putting a price tag on it. This is something that the industry at large just doesn't seem to understand. They don't get why players are so upset, why they're so loud, why they won't trust anyone. Instead, what they want to do is they want to call you entitled. Say that you're algorithm poisoned, that you're addicted to outrage, without taking the time to realize they are the ones that created this monster. They did get one thing right. Players do.
I don't actually even like outrage. Outrage is kind of boring. I like funny, stupid stuff.
Do want to see games fail, but that's not because they're evil or entitled.
And cat post.
It's because they're sick of not being listened to. So when words fail them, they realize the only language left was consequences. The video game industry suffers from a severe lack of accountability and self-awareness to the point that now it's honestly just getting hard to comprehend. The same lessons get taught over and over, and nothing ever gets learned because the people that are making those mistakes refuse to believe that it is them. And we see this every single time a game fails. There's always an excuse that's deflecting around the obvious. The market's tough. We didn't time our release right. The genre's oversaturated. And now their new favorite, it's the players. It's content.
Oh man, the genre is oversaturated was my personal favorite, honestly, okay? Game comes out. The market's oversaturated. Game dies. 2 months later, an actual real game comes in the same genre, absolutely decimates it, and everyone loves it. And they're like, still, oh, it's oversaturated, trust me. These people lie. They will find any excuse. And at some point, the gamers want outrage, the gamers are evil is also gonna be an excuse that no longer holds any water. I mean, none of their excuses honestly held any water from beginning to us. But, at some point, no one's gonna literally care, even their own people, the handful of idiots who actually buy this garbage. And then they're gonna move on to the next thing. At least they're creative about how to blame us. I have to say that, at least they're creative in finding new lies.
Content creators, it's the culture. Apparently, we manifested their failure into existence and unfairly got what we asked for. We've watched this same cycle for the past few years. A game gets announced and it genuinely breaks your brain trying to figure out how that game even got greenlit. Developers in condition so sheltered that the second that game touches sunlight, it just evaporates. The character designs, the themes, the gameplay, the genre. Players look at it and they feel two things at the same time: offended that the industry thinks this is worth their money, and frustrated that this industry refuses to save itself. So then what happens? Well, the trailer gets downvoted into oblivion. Social media lights up. People say very clearly and directly, this is not what we want. The industry ignores it, calls it noise, pretends that it's the fringe. And then, well, the game launches, nobody shows up. And somehow, yet again, well, it can't possibly be them. No. It has to be the players. In 2026, that game was High
Taking accountability is not a popular thing, what can I say?
Guard. Everybody knew it was going to fail. Everybody said that it would. Hell, I made a video that did.
I mean, no one likes accountability, right? Because you're not wrong. Yeah, you didn't make a mistake. No one makes mistakes. You don't make mistakes, especially you. So yeah, accountability is unacceptable.
After its announcement, saying exactly that. It looked half-baked. It looked like it needed more time. It needed to go into beta. That feedback was everywhere. The entire internet was criticizing it. Then the game released and it failed. Oh my gosh, what a surprise. Now we have the developers placing the blame at the...
To be fair, it lasted a little bit longer than expected. Well, technically it died in 4 hours, but after the death, where only the super mega fans were left, it did drop slower than expected. Maybe it was botted. Who honestly knows at this point? You know what's my favorite thing about the High situation? And by the way, it's shutting down. If you did not know, it's kind of official. Their website's offline even, so it's only a matter of time before. Well, actually, no one's getting refunded, I guess, in this case. But you know what's my favorite part about High God? It's the idiots who believe the obvious lies. Those are my favorite. That the Concord, the saddest thing about Concord's, oh no, not Concord's, but Highguard's shutdown is the fact that the devs told that they have a year's worth of content already prepared, and we're gonna see none of it? Oh no! Yeah, no, that they're lying. That they're lying about that, if anyone's wondering. Oh, there's a year's worth of content. That was literally I think the studio owners words. We have a year's worth of content ready. Well, should have made a game and then made a year's worth of content, buddy. How about that for advice?
Feet of the players and content creators while assuming none of it themselves. Josh Sobel, one of the technical artists on Highguard, took to Twitter to write a lengthy reflection about how gaming culture destroyed the game. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but you do need to see just how out of touch this mindset is, because every time they say this stuff, it just proves the players right. Josh opens with, the day leading up to the Game Awards 2025 was amongst the most exciting of my life. After 2.5 years of passionately working on Highguard, we were ready to reveal it to the world. The future seemed bright. Everyone I knew who had a connection to the team or the project had...
Oh yeah, we saw this. This is like toxic positivity at its finest.
Shared the same sentiments. It's lightning in a bottle. I trust this team wholeheartedly. If there's one project nobody in the industry is worried will fail, it's yours. This has mainstream hit written all over it. There's no way this will flop. I could play this all day. Now, either you are surrounded by professionally trained bioengineered gaslighters or you made this the hell up. There is no way. This is way too on the nose. It's almost stereotypical.
Considering the modern state of game development and all of these activists that have flooded it, I think this is real. Because this was the story of Concord, and it's an official story, okay? It's not something we suspect. This is uncollaborated, technically, but the Concord stuff was exactly this. and it was real. So I am, I am absolutely not shocked, surprised, or anything. I fully believe that this is real. There is very little doubt that this is a fake.
Typical. Who would actually go out and say there's no way this game will flop? If there's one project, nobody.
I mean, think about it like this. Think about it logically, right? This game was made in the first place. How the hell do you make a game like this in the first place? You made it, so it begs the reason that there are people that do think that this is the greatest thing ever, because it was made. If this is fake and no one actually believed that, then the game would have never been made in the first place. But it was. So this, again, it just makes sense that this is real.
In the industry is worried will fail. It's yours. Jeff, you did this, didn't you? You said this to them. Your game was sheltered. I assumed as much, and I said as much in my review after the game had launched. Hell, I even think I said it in my intro. The more that I played it, the more I watched on as people with zero stake in the outcome cheered it on that probably weren't even playing it themselves. The more obvious it became to me and also to everybody else that this game was a casualty of toxic positivity, no different than Concord, because otherwise it would have never made it to market. Mining rocks in a first-person shooter, massive maps with 3v3 and 5v5, even when you bumped it up later, a shooter where players barely engage unless they're standing on an objective, a game that makes you feel like you're only fighting other players, maybe 25% of the time? No progression, no leaderboards, no scoreboard, a hero shooter where the heroes make isekai protect.
Wait, no scoreboard? Wow.
Agonists look original.
I don't even know a single game where having no scoreboard has been a positive thing. I did not even know this was a thing, by the way, that this game had no scoreboard. I did see some gameplay from people from this, and I was like, actually thinking, man, no one ever opens the scoreboard. Yeah, turns out there is no scoreboard. That kind of explains that.
And nobody noticed that. You're trying to tell me nobody said anything. Nobody at a single point said, hey, you know what? Something might be wrong here. This is the stuff
Probably didn't want to get fired.
That drives players up the wall because it is so self-inflicted. These are not subtle problems. A Candy Crush gamer could call this stuff out. So either you didn't listen, didn't want to hear it, or no one around you was willing to say it. You were surrounded by people that were being supportive for the sake of being supportive, people that cared more about your feelings than they did about your results. And at the end of the day, the product that you made is what happens when you get a shooter that is built inside of a padded room, insular, coddled, and completely disconnected from what players have been asking for and what they have made blatantly obvious over years of public failures. And it's no wonder that you were surprised when your game finally touched reality. Josh continues with his experience saying,
I look at this and I think it technically shouldn't be that bad, right? But it kind of is. If you think about it, like, for example, Unreal Tournament is kind of the same as High Quad, but for some reason that thing slaps.
But then the trailer came out, and it was all downhill from there. Content creators love to point out the bias in folks who give positive previews after being flown out for an event, but ignore the fact that when their negative-leaning content gets 10 times the engagement of the positive, they've got just as much incentive to lean into a disingenuous direction, whether consciously or not. Now, to save for time...
I hate that thing. Everyone says it. As someone who does mainly negative content about these things, because what else are you supposed to do with this, right? Positive content has such better longevity. Negative content does get a little bit of, more views. Sometimes a lot more views, to be fair. But ultimately, it's just a trend. Negative content is just a trend. Making only negative content is the same as just being a, YouTube news channel, technically. It's just, talking about, what the Kardashians are doing. It's just a trend. Whenever I can make positive content about something succeeding or I'm looking forward to this, I do it because that stuff is gonna accumulate a lot of views over time. Positive content lasts way, way, way longer. In fact, the only evergreen content on YouTube is positive content. Negative content doesn't last. So, if I could be making positive content because the games industry was thriving, flourishing, and everything was amazing, I would. it's not like we're doing dedicated videos to this, but constantly I am comparing the negative stuff like this to the actually really good stuff that had happened. People are tired of me yapping about Fallout New Vegas, Clair Obscure Expedition 33, and Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon when I can. You people are tired of that even.
I'm going to summarize a bit. He goes on to say that he got personally targeted too. He went private on Twitter to protect his sanity, and content creators saw that and turned it into a storyline, calling him a coward and sending angry waves of people into
Well, yes, because he is a coward, obviously.
his replies. He said people laughed at him for being proud of the game, told him to go fill out a McDonald's application, and even
I hope he did, because he's gonna need it.
mocked him for listing autism in his bio. I still don't understand why people do that. And I'm just going to stop it right there.
I do.
Now, this guy is referencing me directly, so I have to respond to this. I am the one that pointed out how preview events are terrible for feedback, that they almost lead to nothing but glowing coverage. I've been to plenty of them. I know how it works. It's not even the point of it being a paid trip part. I think that's the laziest part of this conversation. I'm talking about the event itself.
Oh, it is. Oh, it is. They're being nice to you, so you want to be nice to them. That's as simple as it gets.
The drinks, the food, the social energy, seeing people that you know, seeing people that you don't. You're not locked into judging these games like a customer would. You're basically at a party and the game is just background music. And even if you do have criticism, there is real social pressure there. You are now face to face with these developers. You are surrounded. You are not trying to be the guy who is killing the vibe. That is poison to honesty. That's not bribery. It's just human behavior. But you want to go and flip this into content creators did this to us, that me and others disingenuously attacked your game because negativity gives us 10 times the engagement. You have no idea what you are talking about. And honestly, it explains a lot. It explains why your game failed, why so many other games are failing, why games media is struggling, because you people do not understand other people. You do not understand basic social behavior. And also, for the record, 6 out of the top 12 videos on this channel are positive. I am not some rage merchant that can only function off of hate. Yes, I do critical content. That is the theme of the channel. I compare, contrast, and I react.
Be absolutely fair. I think his content, alleged that he drops content, is more like mine. Technically not talking about negative things sometimes, but at the same time, I mean, no one's actually looking at this as a positive thing, because at the end of the day, you're kind of calling, well, not kind of, you are literally calling out the failures of the AAA industry. So, you know, these 6 things out of 10 being positive, I don't know about that. But I have actually seen the Warframe one. This one, this one is good. This one I have also seen. This one's actually just a bash on how, again, all the positive things at the end of the day are actually going to be you pointing out the folly of the current gaming industry. So, a lot of people are not going to call this positive. A lot of people are going to call it, in fact, negative. That this is fear merchanting and whatnot, which is also kind of a bad part about the conversation, but how are you supposed to avoid it, right?
Merchant that can only function off of hate. Yes, I do critical content. That is the theme of the channel. I compare, contrast, and I react to what's being said around a lot of these games, but my opinions do not create public opinion. They are a lightning rod, a loudspeaker for people who already feel something. Content creators cannot make people love a bad game. We can't make people hate a good one. The people who grow in this space are the ones who naturally resonate with others, not the ones that are trying to force a narrative. Being a contrarian does not work for you. People just want a fresh perspective, true, but at the same time, they are trying to seek out what they are already interested in. Go type in, I hate Dark Souls into YouTube, and you're going to find a bunch of videos that are just not dominating the conversation. The algorithm is still going to try to shove you into positive Dark Souls videos because that's what people actually want, except for
Yep, actually makes sense, I guess.
Dark Souls 2, but that was actually a bad game.
And also, by the way, critique about Dark Souls is valid, so people do watch that. But critique that says that Dark Souls is a horrible game and it's not fun and you should feel bad for playing it, obviously does not represent reality, so it doesn't really get fought. But critique of Dark Souls videos do get decent coverage, decent views. Some of them get a lot of views, by the way, because they're legit. At the end of the day, You're never gonna get that the average person who has no horse in it, who's just doing this for entertainment, suddenly magically decides that, wait a minute, this is where I put my foot down and now I'm gonna be an activist. For whichever side. It doesn't happen. The average person watching this video is not watching this because of an inherent political bias. The returning audience that is watching this video of mine is probably watching it because they have seen my previous videos and and their opinion is more or less congruent with mine. And that's normal. We all do it. This is normal. We like people who think like us. We like people who like things like us. So they know that about a subject that they maybe don't know, or maybe they're really interested in this. They can watch my video or Legendary Drops' video and get an opinion that they maybe trust or like. That's the recurring audience. But the average person who does not know anything about this video is not going to sway them that much.
Game, and that totally deserves to get routinely dogged on. But that's how the internet works. That's how people work. If you genuinely believe that content creators can just decide to tank your game for engagement, then you fundamentally misunderstand how attention works. And if you don't understand how attention works, well, then you probably don't understand how interest works. And if you don't understand how interest works, well, you're going to have a really hard time making something that people are actually interested in. The algorithm does not manufacture desire. All it does is amplify it. If negative videos about your game were getting 10 times the engagement, that's not because us creators flipped the switch. It's because that friction was already there. Skepticism was already there. People already had something that they didn't like about it, and the algorithm just poured gasoline on it. I really hope game developers are watching this. This is probably the most important and the most valuable bit of insight that I could give you. If you think that content creators cause the reaction, you are missing the most important step. You should be asking, why did the reaction resonate? You should be asking, why aren't people excited? Why are the comments negative? If your first instinct is to blame the amplification instead of the signal, well, all you're doing is just blaming a thermometer for a fever. You are so sheltered that you are instinctively deflecting any type of accountability before it even shows up at your door. Content creation success is about resonance. Video game success is about resonance. You cannot strong-arm people into liking something. You cannot strong-arm people into hating something. You cannot guilt people into anything. You cannot shame people into showing up. That doesn't work in any industry. So when I see a game
the shaming part did work for a while, honestly.
Developer that comes out that says that they believe that content creators are the ones that drove failure because negativity performs better, what that tells me is somebody believes that attention is something that you can control. And if that's the case, it makes a lot of sense why you made a game that you thought people should like rather than a game that they actually did. This industry needs to start asking, why are players so upset?
Also, it doesn't make any sense, the concept in general, that negativity is popular. Because if negativity was popular, your games would be popular because people would be interested in them because of the negativity. But they're not interested in them because of that. So it doesn't make sense.
Where are these reactions coming from? Why are they resonating so hard? Why don't they trust us? Why does it seem like they hate us? What do they actually get from our failure?
Theme? I'm pretty sure they very much openly hate us, and what they get from our failure is, well, they have never gotten it, so, you know, they kind of go on that one. But if we would ever fail, they would be able to wag the tail and do what I do every second video and say, boys, pat yourselves on the back because we were right again. Because for someone who has never been right, that probably feeling of being right is something that they very, very, very want to experience finally. And these people have never experienced it. Even when they lie to themselves, they don't really buy it that they are right about anything. Again, I don't honestly think the people who said South of Midnight was a success. Sound of Midnight is a game that maybe has not even sold 10k copies, by the way. AAA thing, one of Xbox's big games. Turns out it was. I didn't even know it when I actually covered it. But yeah, turns out Sound of Midnight had a substantial budget. And was one of Xbox's big release, man. That just makes it extra sad. That thing maybe, if lucky, has sold 20k units up to this point. And they called it a success. People who, lie and say that we are the bad ones, they called Sound of Midnight a success. Oh my god. In any case, I don't think this is gonna change. And blaming us is getting old. I'm not gonna lie, it's getting old. You need to switch up the meta a little bit. You need to come up with something else, We already went through racist, evil, liars, and now it's just, that it's fake outrage. You need to switch it up a little bit. I want the new meta. I want to enjoy the next thing now, okay? So, so it's fun for me. Because if you keep this up, it's not going to be fun for me, and that means that you're not going to even get the negative coverage. And at this point, you can only get the negative coverage, if we're being honest, because no one fucking is going to care about the positive coverage. Because it's just that bad and dull and boring. Anyway, that was Legendary Drops, 10 out of 10. Bye!